Hello, everybody, and a happy Friday to you out there in Pirates land. This is the Post-Gazette Pirates Show presented by FanDuel. I'm Jason Mackey. He is Colin Beazley. We're back for another episode to break down a couple random storylines this week with the Pirates. We are ticking closer and closer to spring training. We cannot wait. It's freezing here. You know where it's not freezing? In Bradenton. Both Colin and I are extremely eager to get there. Also eager to bring you a very good show today. I'm excited for this. A lot of stuff to get through. We're going to talk a little bit about a report that surfaced in the New York Post about the Pirates and Bubba Chandler. Should we be concerned about that? Not so sure. Brett Baty is another option. I want to debate a little bit whether he's a solution to their third base problems, what's going on with Eugenio Suarez. There's been some talks about that, as well as some projections of the Pirates that aren't so kind. Colin and I are going to weigh into those, maybe a little bit of a fact or fiction segment. But Colin, it's freezing. The weather's terrible. How are you holding in?
I have barely left my apartment over the last few days. I don't know if that's something to be proud of, not to be proud of, but it's been cold. I've stayed inside. It's been warm in here, and I've been okay with
that. That boy. There's no reason to go outside right now. There will be reason to go outside starting February 9th or 10th or 11th or whenever, when pitchers and catchers report. Excited for that. I'm not excited for the freezing weather. So, all right, let's talk about this report. You texted me about this at Pirates Fest, and I don't know. My lens on it is you tend to see stuff like this creep out, just because the Pirates are listening. I don't necessarily think it's anything close. I don't think there was anything close, but I think there's some validity to talking about the Mets as a possible trade partner. And the report we're talking about, Joel Sherman reported something that the Pirates and the Mets have talked about Braxton Ashcraft and Bubba Chandler. That it never got terribly far down the road. In my opinion, good on the Pirates for that. But, when you saw that, what did you make of it? Any smoke, any seriousness? My own opinion, they shouldn't consider trading Bubba Chandler. He is a non-starter for me. But what about you?
Yeah, my initial response was I was surprised to see Bubba Chandler's name show up in there. I had it texted to me by a friend of mine who's a Mets fan who tends to think I know everything about all things baseball. So he's like, is there something real in this? I'm like, I was caught by surprise too.
Yeah.
But what I thought was most interesting in there, and kind of why I've thought it's not as big of a deal, is I believe the third name in that report was Johan Oviedo, which makes me think that this was something that was conversation at the very, very beginning of the offseason when the Pirates knew they had to move some pitching, knew they had to get some offense. And I've always kind of looked at the Mets as a trade partner that could make sense. I think that when you go back to the beginning of the offseason, you have Mike Burrows, you have Johan Oviedo, you have a bunch of guys, then maybe that sort of thing makes sense. Maybe you could have dealt Oviedo to the Mets or could have dealt Ashcraft instead of Burrows. You could have done something there. That said, in my mind, Bubba Chandler is a different tier than those guys. I don't think that he's someone that's as replaceable, and considering what he showed in his major league stint and how much control is left, I would not move him and would have needed a massive package from the Mets in order to consider trading him.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with that. I mean, I don't begrudge the Pirates for having conversations about people. And like you mentioned, the timing of the report, Johan Oviedo being a part of it, like at the beginning of your offseason, I kind of understand it. I'd certainly have the conversation. It's just going to take more than the Mets are willing to give up for me to trade Bubba Chandler. There's just no way. I think he's too important of this rotation. I'm almost there with Braxton Ashcraft. I really like where we sit right now with their starting rotation. If you go Skenes, Chandler, Keller, Ashcraft, and we've talked a lot about how they fill out their rotation. I think that's important. Rotation depth, I think, is going to matter throughout the course of the season. But those top four, man, I'm all in on them. I think they're fantastic. But I like what you said about them being a trade partner. And we're going to talk about that specifically with a third baseman and whether that might link up. But as you know, we are presented by FanDuel. I want to pause there for just 1 second. The Penguins just keep winning games. They've been such a great story. Our buddy King Jemison's doing an excellent job covering them for post-gazette.com. Make sure you check out his coverage. Another big win last night. Something I don't understand is why Dan Muse is not getting more consideration for the Jack Adams Award. I know this is a baseball podcast. The Jack Adams is basically the NHL's Coach of the Year. And he's up there, but he's not as high as he should be, in my opinion. Right now, Jared Bednar, the head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, he's the favorite at -115. Next is John Cooper with the Tampa Bay Lightning, +490. And if you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is how far you have to go down to find Dan Muse at +3,000. And I don't understand it. We were talking about the Penguins being a very bad team at the beginning of the season. Dan Muse has changed that perception. He's been excellent. Don't understand it. But sportsbook.fanduel.com if you want to do anything with those ads or check those out more. And thank you very much, FanDuel, for your partnership and sponsorship. Colin, you mentioned them being – oh, sorry.
Quick, you said Jared Bednar?
Yeah, Jared Bednar. Not related to David.
Huh. I'm not a hockey guy, so hearing that name was a shock to me.
Yeah. Jared Bednar, not David Bednar. I don't know what he's a favorite for, but he's definitely not coaching the Avalanche. All right, so the Mets are a trade partner. Tell me why.
Right now, they have a lot of infielders and not really not enough space for all of them. Is the gist of it. After signing Bo Bichette, there's some room. There's some guys who kind of got pushed out. There's two that make sense in my mind, and that would be Brett Baty and Mark Vientos. I think that either of those guys would make a lot of sense for the Pirates, but I also don't necessarily know what the trade fit would be. How do you consider the two of those?
So Baty is somebody that I think about because he doesn't have a position, and he's probably better deployed at a position. The fit that I don't necessarily see, though, Colin, he's a left-handed bat.
Yeah.
He produced last season, and I was looking up his numbers prior to the show. It's very good. 3.1 B-WAR, hit 254, 748 OPS, 18 homers, 50 RBIs. Like, all of that checks out. I just don't know if they want to get even more left-handed. Vientos is probably more of a natural fit. What would it cost to get him? He comes with a lot of years of club control, and as does Brett Baty, too. They're young guys, but that is the type of player I think the Pirates should be targeting if they can find a third baseman with some team control on them, sort of like Spencer Horwitz last offseason. I just question maybe, what you would have to give up to get those guys. And again, if there's a fear about being too left-handed, which I can't believe we're sitting here talking about with the Pirates, do you want to bring in another left-handed bat? I think that might kind of handcuff you a little bit. I'd probably like to see a right-handed hitter more.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think I'd rather have Vientos for that reason. But what kind of my issue here when talking about trading with the Mets or trading with most any team in Major League Baseball is at this point in the offseason, very, very, very few teams have had any interest whatsoever in trading for prospects. And that's what the Pirates have. Yeah. They've traded away their surplus of starting pitching. I don't think that they want to, and they want to trade any of their current starters. And for what it's worth, I didn't mention this on Bubba Chandler, it's worthwhile listening just to pay attention to what's out there, but I don't think they ever had any interest in trading him. The Pirates have always been willing to listen to anything. That said, I don't know that the Mets would do a 4 prospects trade. I don't know that the Phillies, when we talk about Alec Boehm, would do a 4 prospects for trade. I think that basically every team in Major League Baseball right now, there's probably 25 or 26 teams in Major League Baseball that think they can win this year. That's a little bit different than usual. So you get into the packages of the trading prospects like a Termarr Johnson or trading guys like a Levi Sterling or other prospects out there. And teams like the Mets that expect to compete for a World Series in 2026, that doesn't necessarily move the needle for them unless you give them a ton of prospect capital.
Colin, I want to ask you about something because I'm split on it a little bit. I was asked a couple times in my chat yesterday, and this is somewhat related to the Mets, but just a general trade conversation piece. I think I'm against trading another pitcher who can pitch major league innings for them, meaning like Thomas Harrington was somebody I was asked about quite a bit. Like that was posited. Somebody must have put something out there with the trade. It was either the Texas Rangers or the Houston Astros, like a prospective deal. Like Termarr was a part of it. I'm fine with that. If Joey Bart's a part of it, I'm fine with that. I don't think I'm okay giving up Harrington. I think I want Harrington to pitch major league innings for the Pirates this season. And I think over the course of the season, they're going to need him. Do you share that opinion, or would you be okay trading Harrington?
Yeah, I read your chat and I thought that was an interesting trade proposal from whoever put that out there. I've seen a lot of not very great trade proposals in that chat over the times I've read it. So props to whoever put that out there for getting creative and finding something that's somewhat fair. I also struggle to give up major league pitching and close to major league ready pitching. I understand you might have to. I'd say I'd be willing to give up a guy like Thomas Harrington or Wilbur Dotel or an Antoine Kelly. But that said, considering the Pirates pitching staff is not as deep as it was, and basically everyone in there has injury history, I want to have as many guys that can pitch major league innings as possible. I worry about giving up more However, I also worry about this team going into the 2026 season without another major offensive upgrade. I worry about that. So I think you can kind of pick your evil. If you have to give up with the Thomas Harrington to get someone who's your starter at third base, I'd do it. However, I'd much rather try and steer a team towards someone a little bit lower down in the minors.
Well, in the radio biz, you just delivered what is called a tease, my friend. Another offseason upgrade for the Pirates, which I completely agree with. They need to do that. Colin and I are going to talk about that next. There's somebody whose stock has kind of changed. So hang on with us after the world's fastest break, and we will delve into somebody who, I don't know, might be available, might not, would make a lot of sense. It's a name you heard before. You want to hang on and listen. All right, we are back on a Friday edition of the Post-Gazette Pirates show presented by FanDuel. I'm Jason Mackey. He is Colin Beazley, and we're talking in the last segment about a bat that would really complete their offseason in a big way. We've talked about this bat before, but I find it interesting. I think Jim Bowden from The Athletic was the last one sort of discussing this, but Eugenio Suarez, in his market, he's unsigned. We're, again, inside of 10 days until spring training starts, at least with pitchers and catchers. He does not have a home. There's a disparate market on him. I think we can feel pretty confident saying that. He'll be 35 somewhat soon. He's a low average guy. He's not very good defensively, but he hit 49 home runs last season. It clearly is a fit for the Pirates in that sense that they need to add some pop, and this guy has it. Colin, as we see this going on with Eugenio Suarez, what is your, I'll say, outer limit or upper boundary? Like, where would you go if you're the Pirates to try to land Eugenio Suarez?
It's not my money, so I'd spend whatever it takes to get him. But I really don't know, because I don't know where his market is right now. I think that, kind of going off of Bowden's report and going off of a lot of what we've heard, what we've seen, is that there hasn't been as much of a market for Eugenio Suarez as pretty much everyone expected there to be. I remember at the beginning of the offseason, we were expecting it to be somewhere like 245 or 360, and I'm no longer sure that Suarez gets something like that, just because it doesn't seem like there's many teams that are interested in him. Like, the Mariners are a possibility, the Red Sox are a possibility, those and the Pirates are a possibility, and that kind of seems like the three options for this guy at this point.
Yeah.
I think, to answer your question, I don't know how much. I certainly wouldn't go 4 years.
No,
wouldn't go 4 years. I even worry about 3 years. You may have to get him to come to Pittsburgh, but I don't know that I'd go up to 20 a year. I think that you'd have to get him at a 16 or a 17 million, and I don't know that the Pirates are still spending that, and I don't know what other options he has out there.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. I worry about going to a third year, but I don't. I think what I wouldn't do is go to 20 million a year in the short term, because I think if you're the Pirates, what you need to be cognizant of is the flexibility to get out of this contract. Maybe if things don't go right, I hate to think like that, but if I'm the Pirates and I think about 2026, if he's productive and maybe things aren't there as a team, he's somebody that you try to offload. That's why I don't, if you can get him on a reasonable deal, I don't think it's the worst time to stretch and try to do something. I do think it's that move that people are sort of gravitating to. When I look at other options at third base, nobody else feels the same. I don't particularly care about his defense. I know it was bad. He's coming off the worst defensive season of his career, -6 defensive runs saved, -6 outs above average. He did not have but if the Red Sox wanted this guy back, I feel like they would have ponied up the money to pay him. There would be something there. To me, that signals opportunity for the Pirates. And you close your offseason with Suarez, a pitcher, Kutch, whatever it is. I mean, I look at that offseason and I think that reignites all of that optimism that we saw around the time where they traded for Brandon Lowe, Jake Mangum, and Mason Montgomery, and then signed Ryan O'Hearn. It's the proper completion to it. Yes, I get that there's commitment down the road, but if you can do that in a reasonable way, 2 years would be great. 2 years for 18 or something like that. Maybe you have an opportunity there, but I don't know, man. I can't say I have a ton of optimism that it's going to happen, but I also look at their offseason and think, like, man, it's kind of weird that they did these things prior to when was the Lowe and O'Hearn thing, like, a week or so before Christmas, and then we haven't heard from them since. Like, it makes me think there's an opportunity still out there.
Yeah, and it's been a fascinating market to see that this is a guy that we've been talking about since October, and it's almost February, and he's still out there. Like, I know that the baseball free agency is different from every other sport in that it doesn't have a deadline, and he could sign in March and things would be fine. But I expected it to move a little bit faster, and it's interesting to see that there hasn't been that many people, that many teams out there. I do kind of wonder whether this is something that's holding up the Pirates from making other moves. I don't think they want to necessarily rule themselves out of the bidding for this guy, but I also don't think that they've made a take it or leave it offer. I don't think that they're at that point with this market. I wonder whether they're saving whatever's left in their spending just in case they have a chance to get him, and then after he signs somewhere, it turns into making your next moves, whether that's signing your left-hander or signing Andrew McCutchen or whatever, just depending on what's left of the budget.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I don't have any problem with them waiting, because if you can wait and get Eugenio Suarez, let's just say fictitiously on like February 7th or something, or we know how much they love making moves in the middle of something else, Super Bowl Sunday, they decide to sign Eugenio Suarez. Ain't nobody thinking about how long it took them to get there. They're going to be happy about the move. So I get it. I hope it kind of falls into their lap in a reasonable way. And I'd like to think if you're Eugenio Suarez, like, obviously he wants to win at his stage in his career. I hope that he can maybe see the potential here and what him coming to Pittsburgh would represent. Like, that would be the final piece where you could look at them and say, man, this is a potential playoff team. This team could be pretty darn good. So we'll see. Anyway, there's one final. Oh, go ahead.
I have one thing I want to add on that. Like,
yeah,
a question for you. Does this lull make you more or less optimistic that Suarez ends up a Pirate? Does this
more
the market's ended up?
More makes me more optimistic. It does, because I think, like, maybe I'm crazy. I think the Pirates have a goal here to operate differently, to the point where, like, they're risking some stuff with Andrew McCutchen, and we went through all of that on Tuesday. Like, they're clearly set on building a better roster. If you're set on building a better roster, and this is the move that is going to push you over the top, which you can make an argument that it is, it's still there. It makes me more optimistic, man. The only thing that I worry about, again, is just Eugenio Suarez's mind. Like, if he's dead set against playing in Pittsburgh, I don't know what you're going to do. You can try to talk to him all day long, but if you can't convince him to come to Pittsburgh, then you've got a problem. But it does make me slightly more optimistic.
Part of me goes the opposite way and feels like if there was mutual interest here, then something would have been worked out already. I mean, again, we've wanted this for a while, and I like, if he wanted to be a Pirate and the Pirates wanted him, and that there was clear mutual interest there, then what's the holdup at this point? I mean, it's been several months. I kind of lean towards he's trying to get the Red Sox to offer him, or trying to get a team that lost the Bichette market to try and upgrade at third base, or something along those lines. I worry that if he wanted to be a Pirate, he'd be a Pirate already at this point.
I think you're right.
I don't know. It's also possible the market just isn't there, and Pirates can swoop in.
All right, the last thing I wanted to end with, Colin, there's been some projections floating around about the Pirates. I'm a little surprised they're as low as they are. And they basically put them around 76 wins. A couple different betting services. FanDuel is one of them. Of course, FanDuel has them at 76.5. Others, I think, aren't as kind. I'm a little surprised they're that low. Are you buying that? Do you think it'll change when they finish their offseason the way we're talking about? Or do you think 76 is about right on the nose for this team?
I think it reflects skepticism that they will make another move. I think if you look at the team as it is right now and you don't include, say, Connor Griffin in it, then you can see how you get to that answer of 76.5 wins. I still think it's slightly low even for the team right now, but I think that a lot of fan optimism and reason you'd pick the over is based upon the next move that they can make and the moves that they've said they're going to make. I also think that having some Connor Griffin in there is another thing that would cause that line to go up. I think I'm a little bit more optimistic than the sports book right now, but I also think that the reason for that low number is because they still have more to do and they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you know what else I think goes into it? Sort of not seeing some of the stuff that we see closer to the team. And what I mean by that is internal improvement on guys that I think are capable of it. Oneil Cruz, Bryan Reynolds, even Henry Davis to a degree. Like, there are guys on this team that I think can be a lot better than what they showed in 2025. If you get Bryan Reynolds, you know, I don't expect him to be a 6-WAR player, but can he be a 3.5-WAR player? Can Oneil Cruz, like, I think he was under 1 WAR, something like that. If you can get him to 3 or 4, like, you know, all of a sudden that's a huge jump. And that's not something people externally are expecting. But I don't know about you, man. Like, I don't think those are that big of asks. Like, if Bryan Reynolds has some lineup protection, I think he's going to be a lot better hitter. I think if Oneil Cruz has some, you know, growing up and maturation and improves against lefties and, you know, whatever, like the ability's in there. Nobody's questioning that. If you tell me Connor Griffin's going to be in this lineup, if you're going to give me a full season of what the Pirates starting rotation can be, I like some of the bullpen additions that they've made. I understand the skepticism, believe me, but I don't know. It just strikes me as 76.5 being a little bit low. And I think if they make the right offseason moves the rest of the way, I think maybe you could see that going up in the 80s.
Yeah. I also, some of the projections I've seen are lower on their young guys than I'd expect them to be. One that jumps out to me is Bubba Chandler, who we've talked about.
Yeah.
Pirates went 6-1 when Bubba Chandler appeared in 2025. And that one was like in 6-0 when Henry Davis catches him. Like, there are things that I've seen out of him, and like you look at his stats, and because of that one bad outing, he had an ERA above 4. But I think that there would be a lot more hype around him and potentially around the Pirates if not for one bad start.
And what was the biggest difference in that start?
But his ERA, like, other than that, I believe it was about a 1.6 in 6 starts. I know that there's been a lot of talk around rookie of the year stuff and Nolan McLean and who the top rookie prospect or pitching prospect is. But I think that Bubba Chandler is someone who can outperform projections by a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I was, you know, sort of being cute, but make sure you check out Colin's story where it's comparing what was the difference between Henry Davis and Joey Bart. And there was a big one. You know, the record with Henry Davis, the record with Joey Bart. And it's not just Paul Skenes influenced. And we saw it with Bubba Chandler. We saw it with other guys too, but that's what I was talking about. Anyway, we will see. We will see how they're finished their offseason. We will be here every Tuesday and Friday to talk to you. We enjoy doing these. I'll be a lot happier when we're doing them from a beach somewhere or down in Florida where it's warm, but we'll make do until that time. So make sure you like and subscribe. You can get all of this content from our Post-Gazette North Shore Drive podcast and YouTube channels. For Colin Beazley, I'm Jason Mackey. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.